This is a summary of the novel The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. This novel was written and published in 1937. This novel begins with a description of the hobbits, specifically the family of Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo Baggins is from a family that is not wealthy, but they do well for themselves. I mean, in the beginning of the novel, we see that Bill is a person who loves comfort. He loves his home. He loves where he lives. He doesn't, he's not an adventurous person. He's not. He's just a normal hobbit. But then we're introduced to 13 dwarves and Gandalf the wizard. And Gandalf the wizard and these dwarves, they convince Bill to go on a journey, on a adventure with them, even though that Bill is not that type of individual. So they convince him after some conversation, after some it took a lot of convincing, but then they convince him and they set off on an adventure. The first place that they go is this valley where these elves are, and these elves kind of like talk about the future and what they're going to accomplish during their journey. The dwarves are out in this journey so that they can collect treasure. Thorn, who is the leader of these dwarves, he's from a line of kings, dwarf kings, and the treasure that he's going to collect is from his family. So he feels entitled to it, and that's why he's going back. So they set out on the journey. They left this valley where these elves are, and they keep moving. Eventually, they run out of food, and they're cold. They're in the night, and they want shelter. So they stumble upon these trolls. At first, these trolls wanted to kill them. They tried to kill them. They tried to eat them. Bilbo Baggins, he was supposed to be he is known as a thief. Well, they want him to be their thief. So he does become a thief in the novel. He becomes really, skilled at stealing things. So when he tried to steal from these dwarves, they catch him because this was his first encounter with being a robber. But before these trolls killed them, Gandalf the wizard saves all of them. They found the cave of these dwarves, of these trolls, excuse me, and they take the treasure that they had in the cave, they bury it for when they come back after their journey, and they take weapons and they continue on their adventure. After this, they start to climb the Misty Mountains. On the Misty Mountains, there was a huge storm, so they found a cave, and they had ponies and food and things like that for their journey. They put it into the cave, and while they're sleeping, who Bilbo Baggins, who was still scared and very timid, while he's sleeping, he sees this crack open up in the cave, and these goblins come. They take the ponies that they had, and they take the dwarves. But before they could snatch him away, Bill screams out, and he awakes Gandalf the wizard, and he manages to kill a few goblins, and he doesn't get captured. In the cave, when they're dragged down to the goblins' lair, um, these dwarves and Bill and Gandalf, they kill a few goblins, and they do kill the king of the goblins. They run through this cave, and there's a lot of um, altercations. Bill gets dropped because he couldn't run by himself because he's really slow. The dwarves, like, they were really scared, so they he gets dropped. They leave him behind, and they're just running for their lives. Gandalf is there too, running for his life, and nobody recognizes that Bill is gone. And he was kind of like he was knocked out for a minute. When he wakes up, he sees himself in the cave and figures out his way out. But before he figures out his way out, he meets Gollum. If you know Gollum from Lord of the Rings, this is exactly who we're talking about here. And before even that happens, he stumbles upon the ring um, that Gollum had, and he steals it. So we see that he's becoming more skilled as this novel goes on in taking things. So he takes this ring, and Gollum doesn't know this, but when they meet, um, Bill says, help me find a way out of this labyrinth. And Gollum says, like, if you beat me in a riddle war. So they have this riddle war. Bill does win. The last question comes to him, and he says to Gollum, if you can guess what I have in my pocket, you win. But Gollum doesn't know, and Bill wins the game. But Gollum is like, I'm not gonna lose to this person. So he tries to go back to his home to get the ring, but he can't find it because, of course, Bill has it. So Gollum thinks that Bill stole his ring, so he tries to run after Bilbo Baggins, and Bill slips on the ring. He didn't know that the ring could turn you invisible, but he slips it on by accident. And he starts to run because he saw Gollum coming for him. And he falls and trips. He thought he was dead. He thought he was dead. But Gollum, just keeps on running. He doesn't see him because, of course, he's invisible. So Bill gets up. He follows Gollum down the tunnels, and Gollum leads him to a way out. And Bill passes Gollum. He almost tried to grab him because he could smell him, but Bill was quick enough. He passes Gollum, and he goes down. He gets into a fight, kind of gets into a standstill, a quarrel with a few more goblins at this door to the outside world, but he manages to escape anyway. And he meets up with the dwarves, who are extremely glad to see him because they thought he was dead. So they keep on going, and they stumble upon this meeting of wolves. And the wolves were having a meeting about their future plans, and the wolves see the dwarves see the wolves. The dwarves try to fight against them. They try to set them on fire because this meeting that the wolves were having, they were in the forest, and the dwarves climb the trees to get away from them, and they start throwing fire down, and the wolves were running around crazy because they're afraid of fire. Um, and then the goblins showed up, and they were about to roast these dwarves and eat them up. But the eagles, the Lord of the Eagles, he comes down with other eagles. The um, they take the dwarves away. They take Bill and Gandalf. They take all of them away, and they go to their sanctuary. And the eagles help them out. They give them food to eat and all things like that. And they lead them further into their journey. So the journey continues, and now they have enemies because they killed the king of the goblins, and the wolves are not happy that they set him on fire. So the journey continues from there, and we see that they land at the house of Biren. And Biren is this creature that can turn into a bear. He's a shapeshifter. He has powers. He's very powerful. So Biren does invite him into his house. At first, there's a little bit of tension, but he does invite them into his house. They feast. They have a lot of merry times, and Gandalf and Thorin, they explain to him what's been going on, and Biren listens. He's happy because they killed a lot of goblins and hurt a lot of wolves, and he was really happy about that because they're his enemies too. The goblins are everybody's enemies in this novel. So Bjorn is really happy about this. He rejoices, and everybody eats. Everybody's happy. Biren in the novel, he's kind of a scary person or a scary animal himself, because he's very mystical in of a way. He lands his ponies, his horse, to the dwarves and Gandalf and all of them. And their next part of their journey is to go through this really dark and scary forest. And the dwarves are very scared about this. It's a forest that's really bad. And Bjorn said, "Okay, I'm gonna lend you my ponies, but when you get to the forest, to the edge of the forest, you have to send them back." And they're like, "Okay, we'll do that." And they set them off, and as soon as they get to the forest, the dwarves are like, "Okay, let's take the ponies into the forest because Bjorn's not even here." And Gandalf was like, "Listen, relax," because the whole time that they were going to the edge of the forest, Bjorn had been with them. He's been following them the whole way. Bjorn has the power to turn into a bear, and compared to a bear, a dwarf is minuscule. So he was keeping watch of them. He was protecting them in a way, but he was also watching over his ponies. So they're like, if you don't like send the ponies back, you're gonna feel the might of Biren. So they send the ponies back, and the whole time Bill could see a shadow of a bear from far watching them. So when they send the ponies back, they do see a shadow of a bear shuffling away. So it's very kind of scary. It was like there's a shadow, there's a ghost in the background watching you. So the ponies go back, Baron goes back, and the dwarves are gonna go into the forest, but it's going only going to be Bill and dwarves going. So now they're alone. Gandalf says he's not going with them. He has other wizards things. Like he's a wizard, so he says he has other wizardy things to take care of. And he goes away. He leaves the dwarves and Bill to themselves. And Bill, at this point, he's become a tough guy. He has the ring of invisibility. He has kind of a sword, a dagger, and he's more cunning now. He's more smart and he's more crafty. So they go into the forest. Everybody is scared. Everybody's sad because the forest is very dark. And now they start to see a bunch of spider webs, and the spiders start to attack them and try to eat them. But Bill is very smart. Bilbo Baggins. Uh, he becomes the new Gandalf because he saves the dwarves many times in this forest, and they get through the spiders. And their next challenge is to go through the Elf King. And in the Elf King, he loves treasure, and he's just trying to figure out where are these dwarves going. He thinks that they're going for treasure, and Thorin, who is the leader of the Elf Kings, he doesn't want to tell the Elf King this because he wants, the treasure for himself. So they put the dwarfs in prison when the elves capture them. They put the dwarfs in prison, and Bill, because he had the invisibility ring, they didn't capture him because they couldn't see him. And after they stayed there for a while, they stayed in prison for a while. But Bill soon learned his way around this place, the Elf King's palace, and he gets his friends out. He puts them into barrels and he goes down the river. And the Elf King never knew how they escaped because Bill was invisible. He took the keys from somebody. He unlocked the cages, the prisons, and he took his friends out. And he put the keys where he found them. So no one knew how the prisons, the cells were unlocked. No one knew how they were open or closed. No one knew what happened, but they all escaped and they went down the river in barrels that were carrying wine. That was a whole There was a whole sequence of events why they did it in barrels, because the Elf King, the elves loved wine, so they created this way that they can get wine by sending barrels down the river. So Bill and his friends catched a ride on these barrels. So the next part of the journey ends up at this lake town, this town on the river, and everybody's rejoicing. All the people are there are like saying that Thorn has returned, that the reign of dwarfs has returned, and everybody's happy. So At this point of the journey, everybody was kind of sad, everybody was kind of tired, but this rejoicing really cheered them up, and they saw a new rebirth of their energies so that they can go get this treasure that they're going for. So they pass this town and they keep going, and when they get to the mountain where Thorne's family had ruled for ages. They try to find a way in, and eventually they do find a way into the castle, into the mountain. But what happens is there is a dragon by the name of Smaug that is inhabiting this place now, and he has been hoarding so much gold, all the types of gold that you can think of. It's all inside this mountain. It's all inside this palace, this castle. This place for a king, and the dragon is just sleeping on it, and he's counting his treasures. And Bill goes in while the dragon is sleeping. He steals this little golden cup, and he brings it to Thorn, and he says, "Here, look at this. Look at the treasures that are here." And Smog, the dragon, he just gets so mad, and he tries to kill them, but he couldn't kill them because they were hiding in a special place. They went through a back door, so Smog never saw them coming. And Smog figured out that they had help from the lake people, the town in the lake. So he says that he's going to show them that they should never help people that are going to come against Smog. So Smog is very mad. He has a conversation with Bilbo Baggins, and they have a really back and forth conversation. But the dragon gets a lot of information, even though that Bill was trying to hide a lot from him. The dragon gets a lot of information. He figures out where they came from, and he goes down to this lake town, and he was about to destroy it and eat, the people there. And this warrior by the name of Bard, he saw that there was a opening in the dragon's armor in his like chest area, his belly underbelly area, and he throws an arrow that goes into this opening, and he kills the dragon. Everybody's surprised because this dragon had been killing and rampaging for centuries and ages, and nobody ever had the ability to kill him. So Bard kills the dragon. The dragon's carcass, the place it fell, it just laid there because it's so big and so massive that nobody can move it. The people of this town, this lake town, their master was a very greedy, not really a good representative of who they wanted to be their leader. So they say, let's make Bard our new leader, but he's like, no. The master comes in, he's like, no, 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 let's be mad at the dwarves because they're the one that awakened the dragon in the first place. So let's not dethrone me because it's worried about revenge and hating people instead of taking my money away from me. So that was kind of his mindset, and they they get mad of the dwarves, but they thought that the dwarves were dead. They thought that if the dragon was coming to kill them, then he probably had killed the dwarves already. But that's not true because the dwarves were just hiding in their hole. So the dwarves do come out the hole when they see the dragon never comes back. They start to explore, and this whole sequence of events go down. Everybody throughout this whole land hears that the dragon is dead, and there is a lot of treasure being, defenseless. And um, the elf king, he and his army come. Um, the dwarfs, Thorn, he wants the treasure for himself. So he builds up a wall to defend himself and the people that are going to come in and try to take his money away, his gold away. So the elf king is coming. The people of the lake town are coming. Um, the goblins are coming because they heard that the dragon is dead, and because the dragon is dead, nobody can stop them from doing what they want. Plus, they hated the dwarves anyway, so they wanted to kill their enemies. So the dwarves are coming, the wolves are coming, and this becomes the five big army war. And in the novel, you have this whole sequence of events that sets, and you have this big war that takes place. On one side, you have the Elf King, even though at first he was supposed to be the enemy, but he joins up with the dwarves and this other army, not our dwarves, not Thorn's dwarves, but another army of dwarves comes with Thorn, his 12 other dwarves, and the Lake Town people. Yeah, there's a lot of armies. So essentially, you have three armies and a band of wolves and goblins. And there is a lot of goblins. There's just a massive number of goblins. And this war goes down, and it looked like as if the goblins were going to win because there was just so many of them. But then Baron, that big bear that seems invisible, he shows up and he just starts, killing goblins left and right. Then, you get other helpers come. The eagles come to help out because everybody hates the goblins. The goblins, like, they don't care about anything. They'll eat anything that they want to, and they'll ruin anybody that they want to. So Biren, the eagles, the Lake Town people, the dwarves, everybody, the elves, everybody comes against the goblins and the wolves, and the war just goes all out. Gandalf is there, and the war is just going out. Bilbo Baggins, he gets really scared. At least at this point, he's really tough and he's done a lot. He's faced a lot of his fears. But at this point, he's like, you know what? I've done so much. Let me put my ring on and slip out, and be invisible so that nobody kills me. So the war goes on. The good guys wins. They win, and the goblins are basically wiped out, and so are the wolves. Um, Not all of them, but most of them are wiped out. So the war ends like this. At first, when Thorn did get to his castle, he didn't want to share any of his gold, but he dies in the war protecting it. And we got a new dwarf king. Bard becomes the new master of Lake Town, and the treasure is divided very handsomely. Everybody gets a little stuff. The Lake Towns people get money. The old master of the lake town, he tried to take the money and run away, but he dies and they take it back and they build back the lake town. um, the kingdom of Thorn's forefathers, the kingdom of Thorn's parents, and his lineage continues and somebody else takes the throne. The treasure is divided. The elf king gets treasure. Everybody that participated in defending it got some treasure. Everybody goes back home, and Bilbo Baggins, he goes back home as a hero to the elves, to the dwarves, to the eagles. Everybody respected him because he's a hobbit that did a lot of things. And in the end, he goes back to his home. He keeps the ring. He keeps this jacket of armor that was very rich. He brought it home with him, and he remembered that pot of gold he got from the trolls that they killed, that they froze in stone. He remembered that where they digged it. He took that. He took the cloak, the ring, all of that. So he was pretty wealthy himself, and he went home to his little comfortable home. Biren went back to his home, and his people, Biren's people, who can turn into bears, into massive monsters, creatures. They killed all the goblins. They exterminated them. They eradicated them, and you know, the book really ends in a happy ending. The only funny thing is when Bill gets back to his home. Um, I almost I forgot about this part, but when Bill goes back to his home, um, it was about to be auctioned off because he had been away for so long that everybody thought he was dead. So right when they were about to sell his home, he shows up. He says, "I'm alive," but nobody in his Hobbit community believed that he was actually alive. They thought it was a trick. But he does get his home back. He had to buy most of his stuff back, but he gets back to his home comfortable. Um, home, his tunnel, his all that kind of stuff. and he starts gorging himself and gluttony. And he goes back to his normal life, and everybody respects him a little bit more. And that's how the story ends. So I hope that summary helped. Thank you for watching. Please tell me if this helps in any way. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you next time for another video.